Hello and welcome to the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. We are back again for another great episode. Sorry, I was just looking through some little technically stuff there. And joining me today is the one and only, and he is the one and only today, Graeme McDonald. How are you, Graeme?
Just me today, yeah. Still, to be fair, I've still got a bit of a COVID sting in the tail with my voice and a bit of a cough. Us old men like you and I that are suffering health issues all the way through the winter. And I think within the industry, I know this is a bit of a segue, Richard, but there's an awful lot in the trade that I know that have either had COVID or currently with COVID or worked their way through. And it's that little dirty little secret that it does actually, there's a bit of a sting in the tail sometimes. And it doesn't stop you from going to work and you test negative, but you're just operating at 90%, not 100, 90%. And it just seems to be, this is going to be the winter of it, unfortunately.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've had this, I caught, if people who watch know, over a month ago now, this kind of seasonal cold, fluish kind of thing. And I was flu-vaxxed, so it's probably a cold. Don't want to get the anti-vaxxers going on that one. And it's been a month and I'm still not at 90%. I will probably cough once or twice during this live stream. It really does take it out of you. So everyone stay safe out there. And I actually think it's possibly the illnesses around at the moment are possibly actually making people think that the recession's here a little earlier than it is. And I wonder if once things start to warm up, we might get a wee bit of a bounce as people actually feel like going out and doing stuff again. I think everyone's just kind of bunkering down. I know where I am. I know where I am here in. I know here where I am here in Mangawhai. There's now got a bit of tummy bug going around the school kids and all. It's just that time of year. It's that time of year.
It is.
I saw a meme and I'm sorry if this offends any of our viewers the other day, but someone was saying it's being Arab is finally no longer the worst thing for going through airport security. Or going through an airport. It's now having a cough. So people are just a little cautious. Cautious.
Yep, that's right. So if you're
get me too at some point.
The DP or the sales manager in your team's not working at peak efficiency right now, but they're all coming in feeling a bit under the weather because of illnesses and bits and pieces. Have some sympathy, because it actually isn't easy for anybody.
Yeah. And also, I think, and look, this is, they may be having the same issue that dealers are, but touch base with some of your key suppliers, like particularly your finance company and your warranty company and a few others. They may have the ability to take some of the load off. You know, I know companies like AutoSure, our key sponsor, have worked in the past to assist with locums and that kind of thing when you do need to keep going. Talk to your suppliers. They've got such great systems these days that can make these things easier when you are short-staffed. But I'm sure all the good people out there who are watching this know all these things already, because they're the sharp operators that watch the AutoTalk.
That's why they watch the show, Richard.
Wrap. Now, as we can see, Matthew is not here. Once again, being a little different. Matthew is currently flying in an airplane from Napier to Auckland. So that leaves you with me and Graeme, of course. Now, Matthew has sent us a little bit of a video, and I'll see if I can tweak this to play.
Morning all. Apologies I couldn't make it. I'm currently in cold but quite pleasant Napier. We've just completed launch of the new Ford Ranger. This is the Wild Track with the 3-litre V6, which makes 600 Newton meters of torque. Full thoughts on this vehicle on the lineup. First drive verdict will be up on autotalk.co.nz and fleettalk.co.nz later today, along with a whole host of photographs. But early snippet of how I'm feeling. This thing is excellent. I think it sort of sets up a new benchmark for quality and design for the class, and I think it's going to be very difficult for the other ute manufacturers to follow up this thing.
What do you reckon of that, Graeme? Does that get you going a little?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Ranger guy, right? And funny enough, actually, the people that I talk to around the circles that also like trucks or have trucks of bits and pieces, everyone said the same thing. Wow, that new Ranger actually looks really, really good. You didn't hear that upon the last facelift. There was like, oh yeah, that's okay. But I think the general muted appreciation around there, right, is that Ford have actually nailed this one. Once we get through the initial flurry of sales orders and first up with the money across the dealership floor line, it'll be interesting to see what sort of ongoing demand there is for it. And I suspect all of this will fly in the face of everything that our good friends in government that like us to drive mobile serfdoms instead just don't like to see. And people are going to buy it anyway.
Well, yeah, I think you'll be waiting a long while to see what happens there because they've already got, I think, 6,000 orders. And I gather that the V6 is very hot property, even though it comes with a rather large CO2 penalty attached to it. Here's the question for you, being a Ranger fan, but also someone I know who is shopping for a Mustang. If there's a nice, affordable Mustang in stock, please do call Graeme McDonald. Then would you go a Mustang or would you go a 2.7 litre twin-turbo petrol Raptor?
Mustang. I've done the truck thing. I think they're both equally good products. I'm not a Ford guy either. I should say that. I'm not a, some people, they have the whole, water bottle, hot water bottle, blankie towel, that sort of stuff. They support a manufacturer. I just happen to currently like a couple of products that are put out by Ford. No, I'm going to stick to the Mustang. That particular midlife crisis that I'm apparently in the middle of suits the idea of a Mustang. I've had several trucks. I've had a Colorado, followed by the Ranger. I think this particular moment in time, that's what I want. But if I was shopping for a truck right now, I'm looking at the competition. If I had no brand affinity, I have to say Ford are going to wipe the floor clean. And unless you just absolutely have to have a truck from your favorite manufacturer that's not Ford, or you are driven by nothing but the almighty dollar and you're going to buy the cheapest double cab that you can, then the Range is going to be a really tough act to follow.
Mm-hmm. Interesting when you mentioned the Colorado there, they've just released in the last 12 hours the 2023 Chevrolet Colorado in the US, and
okay,
I think the Ranger still looks better. But anyway, that's not the point. It's not going to come here, so
no, it's a shame too because it was quite a competent truck as well.
Anyway, now we will quickly, before we get on to some real news, chuck another video up on the screen that is something that you and I are working on. And let's throw this up. Look at it go.
Yeah.
Gotta love that bell bell.
The mighty 121 review.
So for those who don't know, that is from the and I'm going to say the word, the Shitbox Rally. Which is currently underway in Australia. I think it's going from up in Queensland down to Tasmania, I think this one. Graeme and I, we haven't done much with it lately, but we're planning on going out there and finding a few sponsors and doing the one across the top of the country. So if anyone wants to get a little bit of brand exposure for charity in Australia, then again, drop Graeme or I a line. We're going to go and find something, maybe import, who knows, in Australia, and look forward.
I think it probably should be, Richard, maybe an import, perhaps, I don't know. But do consider this point. Australia's just had one of the wettest winters seasons on record. And we're talking about going up through the Northern Territory, the top of Queensland. And I can only begin to imagine what sort of gumbo we're going to get stuck in. So you and I should probably consider things like, well, I don't know, four-wheel drive.
We need one of those Corolla Carib four-wheel drive wagons, those.
Yeah, they were mighty things. They were mighty things.
That would be epic. Anyway, let's get on some real news. Luckily, there's no one really watching. Now, as you probably saw on our live stream yesterday, VIA has pulled the plug on its support for the Clean Car Program. The Imported Used Vehicle Industry Association Industry Group, VIA, has announced this afternoon that it is withdrawing support for the government's Clean Car Program, citing ongoing failure in the implementation of the Clean Car discount as the driver behind the move. AutoTalk understands there has been a long tension between the association and some members over its support, with issues with how the program has been run piling more pressure on the decision. Now, Michael Woods has come out with the Transport Minister Michael Woods has come out with a reply, basically saying he acknowledges it, he wants to keep working with VIA and is asking officials to look into it. But at the same time, he says, as far as he's concerned, the system is working and the issues are minor. Now, he's quoted this figure of there being 44 issues or something that have had to be changed. But here's my take on that, Graeme, is that each of those 44 issues is probably potentially, in some cases, thousands of vehicles that are affected by that issue. Is that a fair summary in your mind?
Yeah, I think that's a really disingenuous statement from the minister, which means he's either misinformed or the spin machine within the ministry has been working overtime on this one. And you're quite correct. I mean, the issues are in the thousands, and it's David made a very good point yesterday, which is the numbers that they're seeing or that they're actually using as a quantifier for issues are only the ones that they're actually active cases they're dealing with. What they're not seeing is the chaos it's creating across the trade. And look, I tell you what, just this morning, sat down this morning to put some vehicles into the system that we've just had arrive, and the numbers have already changed. These are vehicles that qualify for a rebate. The numbers have already changed. And now I'm thinking I have to go back over about 120, 130 units this morning and go and check again to see if they're accurate. Because, you broadcast these numbers to the public. Because you can bet your bottom dollar, if I'm out by $100 on what I advertise the rebate to be, and a customer purchases that vehicle, who's going to pay the $100? Not going to be the ministry, is it?
Yeah.
And so I've said this all the way through. At the very basic level, even if you go away from the big glaring issues we've seen, the stress and the strain it's putting on dealerships to manage a process on behalf of a government that couldn't get it right in the first place is immense. If you think about it from our little business here, 120 vehicles, I've now got to go and manually check, cross-check, re-enter, check paperwork, check SIM cards, reprint SIM cards. The cost of printer ink alone, it's a really demeaning process to go and have no confidence whatsoever on a daily basis in the numbers that have been put out on these vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if we'll go into this too much because people can go back, jump back, the previous video on the LinkedIn thing and go through the discussion with Davidinson there. And I also just want to be careful because I understand you now have some involvement in the process. Are you assisting VIA with anything around this?
Yeah, well, it's an open secret, really. And to be fair, I raised the issue at VIA's AGM for further discussion via a written question. As you know, I've had misgivings about this process for quite some time. And yes, for my sins, I've been asked to be part of the working group looking at this with a number of other key industry people. That doesn't preclude me from discussing this. And I've said this all the way through. I feel very sorry for NZTA, and David made the point too, because they're charged with a very unwieldy instrument with a very basic set of tools. And it cannot be easy with the resourcing that they don't have to try and fix these problems. I don't want to lay the blame at NZTA. I think the issues go far higher up than that. So
yeah,
yes,
I think it's been pretty obvious for a while that the ministry is passing this stuff to the NZTA just far too late in the piece. We're now 3 months out from people having to start be registered in the system for the standard, and I don't think even the NZTA has been handed the regulation yet.
It really worries me, and it worries a lot of the trade too, because no one has a clue what this actually means. Ask any dealer, I challenge any dealer out there to tell me what the CCS is actually going to mean for their business and how they are going to manage it and what it means for their stock mix. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Okay, so jump back down this line on wherever you're watching and watch that video. It really is a good discussion with David, and there'll be a lot more on the Clean Car Standard coming in weeks. Yep. I think we're kind of hitting a bit of a line over next week when we drop over into August. I think particularly for the MIA and a few others, it's kind of a bit of a line in the sand as to when some of the standard stuff needed to be at least moving forward. It's going to be a really interesting couple of weeks around the Clean Car Standard. Now, back to the Ranger, just very briefly. The Ford Ranger to be stung by painful Clean Car Standard. Ford New Zealand Managing Director Simon Rutherford has said he expects the brand will probably have to lift pricing of its hugely popular Ranger as the government's Clean Car Standard legislation becomes more strict heading into 2023. Speaking at the launch of the next generation Ranger in Hawke's Bay, Rutherford said that the Clean Car Standard's exponentially increasing CO2 emissions targets are set to become pretty painful by 2025 and 2026, particularly for those in the ute segment. He noted the pricing adjustments are unlikely to be uniform across the range, rather they're most likely to come in the form of counterbalancing the pricing of its 3-litre V6 lineup. The V6 has already been a sales smash with it and the Raptor making up more than half of the Ranger's order base. It's interesting to hear they're talking about counterbalancing cars. So spreading the damage from cars that are perhaps higher emitting to those that aren't. It's an interesting take on it. I would suggest by 25, 26 that Ford will have a plug-in option in the Ranger, either a plug-in or a full electric. But utes are going to get expensive around that time, around that 25, 26. I think people can kind of absorb the hot hit for now, but it's going to be interesting to see when it could, feasibly be 20 grand extra on top of a retail price if you add up all the various little bits of carbon components at the end of the day. So yes, now the first drive impressions for the Ranger are going online today on AutoTalk, this afternoon. So don't forget to follow those up as well. More on Utes. Isuzu New Zealand is looking into Australian D-Max class action investigation. Isuzu Utes New Zealand has confirmed it is looking into a class action lawsuit investigation being undertaken in Australia regarding structural issues within vehicle engine bays and faulty diesel particulate filters. The Australian investigation is being led by Bannister Law Class Actions. The group says it's currently investigating the cracking of inner guards or any other parts within an engine bay, and the second concerns issues with the vehicle's diesel particulate filter. Now, this could be an interesting one. Now, it's unlikely to have, I would suggest, a massive impact in New Zealand because we don't have the same kind of lemon laws as Australia. But it raised a couple of things. I believe the cracking is actually on vehicles which have had approved bull bars fitted, which is pretty uncommon in Australia. Not so common here. DPF, of course, is a massive issue. You know, Twitter's been through a hugely expensive legal fight in Australia. So yeah, be certainly interesting to see how that one goes. I'm not sure it's going to be the same thing here, but I was chatting to the head of a smaller distributor in the last week, and they were saying they would not want to do business in Australia anymore. You're just on the hook there for so long over stuff that you can't necessarily even fix it. You know, distributors mean well in fixing things. We've seen Twitter New Zealand with the DPF filters here extend out an offer to fix vehicles and that kind of thing. But over there, it becomes quite punitive. It's an interesting model they have over there. Would you want to sell vehicles in Australia, Graeme?
No, and I feel really sorry because I'm involved with AIMVIA, obviously. So we have a bit of a tilt, I suppose, at the various existing dealership models and where we think there may be an avenue for used imports to have some impact in the Australian marketplace as well. But if you look at fundamentally at the franchise model right now and the chaos it's in and the separation between FCAI and AADA that's occurred over the last couple of years in particular with suits and countersuits going backwards and forwards, their industry's in flux. No, I wouldn't want to be at all. And I actually, for a bricks and mortar invested franchise retail dealership, particularly the smaller ones that are not tied up to the massive conglomerates, they're in a real pickle because their hands are tied at every level of everything that they do. And as you say, they are carrying a financial can that I think is over-egged compared to the value of the product.
Yeah, it's certainly tricky, and I just think it's that punitive element that comes into play. I kind of feel that making right should be good enough, to be honest, provided people aren't left with their vehicle off the road. But that's really down to the company to manage. But it's a bit of a challenging one. See,
fundamentally, and there's been some other issues down the track in the last few years with product defects in their new vehicles. I don't think any manufacturer sets out to build a defective vehicle. I mean, we're beyond the whole Ford Pinto in the 70s where they could have put a fuel tank behind the axle or in front of it. These days, nobody sets out to build a bad car, but bad stuff does occasionally happen. And like you said, if there is the ability to make good, surely, given that most of these issues we're talking about are they're not by some sort of architect design of the distributor, the manufacturer, yet you're effectively being charged almost as a criminal for daring to make a mistake downstream or a flaw in the design that you came out with. It's tough.
Yeah. No, well, let's carry on in what has been a very truck-heavy AutoTalk wrap. A few utes, and now we've got a truck driving story. Low-wage truck driving days are over, an industry survey finds. A large number of trucking companies reported increasing pay for their drivers over the last year, according to a recent survey conducted by road freight body Transporting New Zealand. 8 out of 10 trucking companies have reported increasing pay for their drivers over the last year. Of the 400 transport companies surveyed across the sector, 55% increased staff pay by at least 6% over the last year. Sorry. And some significantly more. A total of 44% of transport operators indicated they were paying their staff between $21 to $25 per hour in 2020. Now barely 6% in that range. The median hourly wage has moved from around $26 per hour in 2020 to $31 today. The number of drivers being paid between $33 and $40 per hour has more than trebled under 2 years. Now, this is interesting from a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's one of those cost pressures that's increasing in the supply chain. If you're wondering why your lovely cheap all-in-one vehicle shipment package has increased in recent years, it's not because they're being greedy. It's because there's been a lot of cost creep like this, and fuel, and so on and so forth. And I mean, I think secondly, the days of cheap wages in New Zealand are starting to disappear a little. You know, the people there is a labour shortage at the moment, and people are wanting more money.
Well, I think traditionally, if you look at a lot of the sector that we work in, so auto transport, you're right. There's been no immigration to New Zealand in those job categories. There's a couple of big local fleets. The largest fleet in New Zealand that I know of, in terms of single location fleet, specialised in hiring drivers and training them out of the islands, for example, out of Fiji, and going through a work training process. And obviously, with COVID, that program has completely stopped. And there just aren't local drivers to fill that gap, because it's not just what you pay them to do the job once they're trained, it's the training process and the cost of training. And so with the transport industry, one of the critical issues is not so much a case of how much you pay people, it's attracting people in the first place and go through the training process and being drug-free, alcohol, breath testing, drug-free, stable work history, class 5 experience, can turn up to work regularly, all those different things they're struggling with. And so the good drivers are going to get paid really well by these companies because they need to retain those people because they're just not replaceable. And so it's not just a cost of living increase. It's literally a case of having to pay the money to keep your good people, because people coming in the other end of the pipeline, they're just not there.
Yeah. I was slightly surprised at how low perhaps wages were. I mean, if we're talking about, nearly half of drivers were being paid under $25 an hour in 2020. That kind of shocks me for, and you'd wonder about the level of professionalism you get in a trade where you're handing someone a, 6-figure valued 20-ton vehicle and letting them drive around town potentially with hundreds of thousands of dollars of someone else's stock on the back, and you're paying them not much more than you were getting paid to stock shelves at Countdown. That's slightly concerning. So I'm appreciative of the fact that we do need to keep costs down on the supply chain. Everything adds up, but also I almost feel slightly more comfortable that they're almost paying them. These people who are somewhat responsible for our road safety are being paid slightly more than minimum wage now.
Yeah, I've got a couple of acquaintances that do line haul. And they do night shifts, obviously, and they do their 5 days a week or 5.5 days a week. They're specialised. They've got all the right tickets and bits and pieces. Each of them are earning more than $100,000 a year. So for that profession, if you're good at what you do, there's really good money. The problem is that, like anything, Auckland, it's the tippers, the bulk tippers you see running around sections of bits and pieces, where basically, as long as you can get your license or a class 5, stick your seat in the truck, then you've got a job. It doesn't require much thought process. There's not a lot of planning. You're not being entrusted with a $750,000 B train from here down to Masterton or Wellington or the ferry overnight. So there's a big skill set gulf as well, but it's hard to attract people at that bottom end.
Yeah. Is it hard to get? I mean, don't know directly at the yard, but maybe you've heard anecdotally to get even people in yard, people to clean cars in yards and prep vehicles. Is that a hard market to fill at the moment? Have you seen wages going up in that space?
Yeah, I can tell you all about it because we're looking at the moment. It's hopeless. There's just nobody out there. And the applicants you get are of such a poor quality. You're just discarding, and I say the term loosely when I say CV, because we're not even seeing CVs. That's how bad it is. Yeah, the talent pool is really limited at the moment. And I suspect, if people have got a good job and they're happy and they've got a good employer, they're just staying put. They're not looking for other jobs. And if they are, they're being gobbled up almost instantly by people that know them. Yeah. We've been advertising for months, and there's we haven't actually interviewed anybody.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll finish up on that. And look, if you are trying to hire out there, don't forget that AutoTalk does very successfully run situations vacant ads. Email Deborah at automediagroup.co.nz and she can check those online at AutoTalk or Transport Talk or EV Talk or Fleet Talk. There have been dealer principals at major New Zealand dealerships appointed after applying for a job through AutoTalk. So don't forget that. And there is a fee charge. There is a very much a fee charge. So don't think that we do that one for free. But yeah, that's business. Everyone's got costs to pay.
Yes, they do.
So
they do.
Yeah. So now, thank you everyone for that. Now, I'm going to give you another little bit of a tease for something that is coming up. You should go and jump into your diary right now and set aside, if you are a dealer principal, a senior management dealer, or even just a salesperson who wants to further your career and get out there and network. November 11. We will have an announcement next week for November 11. So clear that date in your diary now. You are not going to want to miss this. It's going to be awesome. It's at a brewery. We'll have more details. Well, we hope it's going to be a brewery. We've got to sign on that one.
Yeah.
But more to come next week on that. But I am really excited about what we have planned as always. So look, thank you again for joining us, Graeme. Matthew will be back next week, and I'll find the button over here to pop the closing video up. Thank you so much. Go out there and check out Ford Rangers, I guess.
Happy weekend.